Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Unwritten, which is the Dear Future Self podcast. And it's all about healing, growth, and rewriting the story. Today, I have an exceptional woman, an amazing woman who is going to share aspects of the work that she does. She's going to talk about, things that she's currently doing, which I think is absolutely amazing. So I want to welcome my guest today, who is Pamela R. Haynes. She is an amazing person. She is a speaker, um, an author, researcher, an advocate dedicated to amplifying the unrepresented voices through storytelling and scholarship. She's a research fellow at the University of East London. Pamela combines academic inquiries with lived narratives to highlight issues of justice and social change. She is the author of Loving the Brothers and its sequel, Loving the Sisters, novel that explores resilience, sisterhood, and transformation. In 2025, she delivered her TEDx talk, Write the Book, Chase the Dream, Change the World, inspiring others to pursue creative visions. Pamela also serves as an ambassador for advocates against domestic abuse. Welcome, welcome, Pamela. And, domestic abuse is it's on my heart, as you know. A lot of the work I do is about helping women to heal and overcome after domestic abuse. So, welcome to Unwritten.
Oh, thank you, Victoria, and thank you so much for having me. I think it's overdue. Our paths have crossed at so many different times. We've even been in the same continent at the same time and couldn't quite meet. So it's really nice to be seeing you now. So thank you for having me.
You are most welcome, and you're absolutely right. It is well overdue. I remember actually, I think the last time we met, we were both getting awards. I think we both met at the Global Women's Powerhouse. Anita Bradshaw.
Bradshaw.
Yes, so
Mhm.
we were both receiving awards on that day, which was an amazing event anyway. So let's get into it. Pamela
Okay.
Hayes. You write about domestic violence, yet you also speak powerfully about envisioning a better life. How do these two themes connect in your work?
I worked for the probation service. As you know, I was there for 26 and a half years, but my overall experience in the criminal justice field is 30 years. I think that if you're in the change business, as I call it, if you believe that people can change,
Yeah.
then you have to enable people to imagine what a better future may look like. If you don't believe in change, then you really don't have things to offer. But if you believe that people can change, they can move on despite their circumstances, despite where they were born, despite education, missed opportunities, that they can reinvent themselves at any time, then you have
Mm,
to enable other people to dream a better future for themselves. And that's how the two aspects of my work collide, I suppose, that
yeah,
I like to leave women in a better position than how I found them,
yeah.
especially if they are survivors of domestic abuse. And I want them to be able to imagine, even if it's a chink of what a good future might look like going forward. So
Mm,
that's my ambition, really.
yeah, I like that. I absolutely love that because I was once in that place. I was once in that place. And I kind of think about, that Bible script, and I'm just hope I get it right. If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, because vision and faith go hand in hand, right? So it's about, visualizing and visioning that dream that you have for yourself, but also having faith knowing that it's going to come to pass, it's going to manifest. And so for me, I think about, when I was going through my particular challenges all those years ago before I started doing the work. And for me, it was about having that vision and knowing that you want that change. Because I think this is something that you said. It's about wanting that change to happen in your life. And one not wanting to have those experiences, not wanting to be in that abusive relationship, or not wanting to be in that job, whatever it may be, but believing that that change is going to come at some point in your life. So amazing. So, your book tackles the reality of domestic violence. How has writing, been a tool for healing for you and for the readers who connect with your story? How do you think, that has not also helped you, but also helped the, people that read your books?
Again, in my work as a senior probation officer, I was working with perpetrators of domestic abuse,
Mm.
and quite a substantial high number of them had also experienced domestic abuse as children. Very often they were in the room when violence was happening, or
Yeah.
they were in the room next door and they could overhear it. I mean, I would argue that domestic abuse affects the unborn child right the way through to adulthood. So there are studies out there to prove that babies are often born much more prematurely. They struggle to
Mm.
meet certain developmental milestones and so on. They struggle with school anxiety. There's a number of things, truancy, right the way up through to
Mm.
adulthood as a result of being um, survivors of domestic abuse.
Yeah.
So that was one side of it. And on the program that we ran in the probation service, it was unpicking all of those long held beliefs about
Mm.
women's roles, what men's roles were, looking at their controlling behavior. And the second half of the program was about equipping men with new tools, because no one comes into life with a manual of how to conduct relationships and for them to be healthy places.
Yes.
So I'm coming from this as a professional person that was. My caseload was mixed of people who were survivors of domestic abuse and also men who were perpetrators of domestic abuse
Yeah.
as well. So that's a perspective that I came from. And what did I learn out of it? For me, I've always wanted to write a book. It's been I'm an avid reader. you
Yeah.
know um, I, I was the person that was in the library that got 6 books out at a time to read. I was struggling to find Black fiction because I love fiction, until I came across some amazing authors that were able to feed my habit, as it were,
Yeah.
for literature. I studied A-level literature at school as well, so I knew that I had something to say, but I
Mm.
wasn't certain on what it was that I wanted to say.
Yeah.
So I knew I wanted to write a book. Wasn't sure really how to go about it, but the title, Loving the Brothers, my first book, I carried that title in my heart for about 20 years, knowing that I
Wow.
wanted to write something,
Wow.
but not quite sure. But, the older that I got, I realized that I was fast approaching a milestone birthday, and I wanted to mark it in some way. And that was either do a master's, go on a cruise, because people of a certain age go on cruises, and write
Exactly.
a book.
Yes, yes.
I didn't quite have the headspace for doing a master's at that time, but I happened to bump into an awards event that I went to, and I bumped into the person that would become my publisher. And she supported me over a 2-year period to
Mm.
write Loving the Brothers. And Loving the Brothers was published 8 weeks before my milestone birthday. So there were the reasons. It was purely
Yeah.
personal. It was purely a passion project of mine that I wanted to get through with. And then we also went on that cruise as well, by the way, Caribbean cruise. But it was one of those things I wanted to always wanted to do. And I really thought, Victoria, that once I did it, that was it. Ticked off the bucket list, move on to something else. But I was overwhelmed by the amount of people who
Mm,
contacted me who, first of all, they start talking about my characters, and then they talk about what personally was happening to them or had
yeah.
happened to them in the past. And I quickly realized I had to start signposting people, so I'm not carrying a caseload at work and in the community.
Yes.
So I quickly had to signpost people who were either still in domestic abuse
Mm,
situations or they had already moved on, but we're dealing with the legacy and the fallout of having been a victim,
yeah.
and I had to quickly signpost people to get, some help around
Support.
those kind of issues.
Yeah.
So, I was working with quite a number of groups in the
Yeah.
community that I could refer people onto. So that's how the two worlds really
Yeah.
collided, my professional world and then this writing thing, because I've written reports before, court reports. I've written appraisals before, but me writing fiction was a whole different story. But the rest, as they say, is history. After
Yeah.
book one, then a few years later, book two came, and I'm writing my third book at the moment.
Well done. And
Thank you.
congratulations, as a fellow author as well. I know that, it's can be challenging, right? In terms of finding the time to make sure, especially if you have deadlines for writing as well. So I know some of these things, I mean, writing, I'm assuming and it's not right for me to assume, but I'm guessing it's flowing out of you and it's something that you're meant to do because you've done the first, loving the brothers and loving the sisters, and now, you're on your third book, which is amazing. But I loved everything that you were saying, Pam, in terms of how your professional life and social life, they combined, they connected together in terms of what you were writing, what you was doing as a professional, and then people reaching out to you about the challenges that they were going through. What I liked what you said about the work that you were doing with the men whilst you was in your professional work as a social worker, because a lot of the times I think about women that are going through domestic abuse. And years ago, in the 50s and 60s, it was still quite a taboo, right? People didn't speak about it for whatever reason, whether it was fear, whether it was, staying because of the children, whether it was pride, shame, or whatever. And, we've come a long way. Even though there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of supporting, victims of domestic abuse. But the point that I wanted to make is that there's so much awareness now about domestic abuse, and there's so many programs and so many things for women, um, and where women are doing a lot of healing, and they're healing, and then they're going back out there to date and marry and so forth. And they're going in, they're having these relationships with men who have not had any healing, who have not done the work. So it's that vicious cycle that's being repeated. And so for me, I think about, you know, men, being able to be vulnerable and to have no shame around their masculinity and wanting to do the work because they want to have better relationships. They want to do healthy relationships. What are your thoughts around that, Pamela?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things that I wanted to pick up on. And whilst you think that women know what domestic abuse is, many don't. And in my experience over the past 7 years since writing Love and the Brothers, is that there are a
Mm,
lot of women out there that do not recognize the red
abusive,
flags.
yeah,
They don't recognize that they are actually
yeah.
victims of domestic abuse because
Mm.
it happens so subtly.
Subtly,
So, the violence isn't happening overnight. Yeah, the
yeah,
love bombing, the
Yeah.
romance, all of that side of it is so overwhelming and so well received, and you think you found the right person and so on. But what you think, for example, a man picking you up from work is a nice gesture. But if the motives behind picking you up is to control, well, access, who
Mm.
has access to you and what you do
Yeah.
after work and all of that,
Yeah.
that's another, that happens a bit later down the line.
Yeah.
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 So I have found in my experience over the last 7 years, many women don't know. And
Yeah.
I'm talking professional women who are in the domestic abuse arena, see
Yeah.
definitions of maybe financial abuse, for
Yeah.
example, and you
Psychological.
can actually see their cognition and they're thinking, right. And one woman said, oh, so when they take out a loan without discussing it with you, is
Mm.
that domestic abuse? And the trainer was saying,
Of
yes, it
course it
is,
is.
because it's
Financial.
causing you, right. But if professional people who are
Yeah.
in the arena are struggling with some of the issues around, domestic abuse,
Yeah.
I mean, that particular woman didn't come back and complete the course because she realized she had another, more pressing matter to deal with. Then, through the work that I do, I found out that many people don't know, and perhaps I'm raising it for the first time.
Yeah.
And if I'm in a mixed group, a lot of I've been subject to a lot of hostility because of it, because I'm raising
Mm.
these kind of issues.
Yeah.
If you layer on that, Black women tend not to call the police when domestic
Yeah.
abuse is occurring because they don't want their partners to come to the attention of the authorities. They don't want the
Mm.
police involved. They don't want social workers in their business, and so on. There's another layer of you know, um, responsibility and accountability
Yeah.
that we go through. So I wanted to pick up on that bit that a lot of people don't know, and I
Yeah.
think you're absolutely right. There are not enough programs for men that are around. By the time they get to the probation service, where I am, they've already been convicted.
Victed.
The violence has already happened, or
Yeah.
the coercive control behavior has already been proved,
Yeah.
or that they're already coming out on license with a condition to complete the program. So I would argue that education is definitely a place for education around what healthy relationships look like. And I'm talking from school age. I'm talking from
Mm-hmm.
secondary school age, where we need to be looking at what these issues and what they look like. What is the difference between an arranged marriage and a forced marriage, for
Mm.
example? So those kind of discussions need to be happening in the classroom before they've even
Yeah.
left school.
Yeah.
And I do believe that I go to a lot of women empowerment events, but I do believe that there should be male empowerment events as well. And I'm not talking about the kind that the likes of Andrew Tate and so on might subscribe to. I'm talking about where men are able to sit with men and be vulnerable about their
Yes.
feelings
Yes.
without being judged.
Yeah.
So I'm all for that, but I can only tackle my part of it
Yeah.
in terms of looking at recovery and how women
Yeah.
recover from domestic abuse. And
Yeah.
I would say to people watching your channel, YouTube channel, we need men who are, um, you know, to take up this challenge as well. Domestic
Mm.
abuse isn't just a woman's problem; it's a societal problem,
Of
and
course.
we need men and advocates
Yeah.
and allies in this arena as well. It's not work that just women can do because it
Yeah.
impacts on us the most.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that 100%. I totally agree. And especially, the thing that you mentioned about professional women, 60% of professional women are more likely to experience domestic abuse, but more likely to experience psychological and emotional abuse
Yeah,
as opposed to
right.
physical, so
Yeah,
there's that undertone of manipulation, and controlling behaviors and things like that they're more likely to experience. And sometimes they don't come out and speak about it because of pride, as well. These women could be big bosses in, corporate organizations, and, they keep quiet just to just, because the idea is that they don't want people to know the things that they're experiencing at home. And again, it could be sometimes they may not even think that there's any form of abuse because it's not physical, because I think people, and I heard this the other day, actually. I spoke to a guy, talking about domestic abuse, and his perception of domestic abuse was that it's only people in from unrepresented backgrounds or the lower classes that experience domestic abuse. And when I actually spoke and gave statistics to him, he was taken aback and was like, "Oh wow, okay." So it's about, it's awareness, right? Isn't it? And understanding in terms of, how domestic abuse plays out in people's lives. And as you said, domestic abuse is a society issue. It's a global issue as well.
Absolutely.
It's a global affair. So, uh, Pam, what first led you to practice of life visioning, and how has it shaped your own personal journey?
I'm actually working on a presentation at the moment, which I'll tell you about a bit later.
Mm,
And I've decided to call it Write the Vision and Make It Plain. And you may or may not know it's an Old Testament scripture
yeah,
that's taken from. But I believe that it translates right across the board, regardless of what faith that you're in,
yeah.
that we need to be making our visions very writing down our visions and how we see the next phase of our lives going
Mm,
forward. And I was introduced to vision boards a number of years ago, and I find it a really healthy exercise to do. And for those of you who don't know what a vision board is, it's more or less like a dream board of
mm,
activities that you would like to see or goals that you would like to reach going forward for that year. So I have two, one with professional goals on it and the other one with personal goals on it.
yes.
Sometimes goals on my vision board can stay on there for years. There's a long-standing one that I have on my personal vision board is to be well and to stay well. I mean, that's going to be a standard one that's going to go
Yes,
forward to
ongoing.
2026. It's ongoing because it's a
Yeah,
journey. And
exactly.
I also believe that if you are constantly seeing your vision board and looking at it and visualizing it, it helps you with the kind of activities that you want to do going forward to realize what those dreams and those visions look like. So I've had TEDx on just the logo TEDx on my professional vision board. I would say for about maybe 6 years. I knew I had something to say, but I didn't know how to say it, what to say, and how to reach that goal. You said you saw earlier in screen my TEDx Wolverhampton lanyard.
Yes, yes.
My friend got to do her